Just when you thought retro games couldn't get any weirder, we've dug up even more pixelated paths to bring you more bizarre, head-scratching, and just plain what-the-heck games from the golden age of gaming. I'm Professor Retro, and these are more strange games. Millen's Secret Castle, released December 15th, 1991 in Japan and one more a year later in the US. So let's look at the protagonist here, Millen. Just who or what is he? Is he a lost elf? A long-lost smurf? Nope, he's just a regular guy who resides in the land of Hudson, where no one communicates by music. Really, music is a form of communication? So what does Millen do to save the day? He breaks into a castle to find a musical instrument and save the princess, of course. Where most games you can figure out the lore, like Super Mario or Legend of Zelda, not here. The lore is as strange as this game. And what makes this castle so secretive? Well, everything does. From the doors to the shop to the keys to open doors, all can be found behind walls that can be broken by your even strange weapon, a bubble gum. And let's talk enemies here. We've got these fireballs, floating eyes of doom. Every room has a relentless parade of enemies that respawn like they just had too many Red Bulls. Oh, and you start every new life with no health upgrades. Good luck surviving more than 10 seconds. And did I mention there's no password systems, no save feature? If you die, you're booted back to the title screen like it's 1986. Which, well, it actually was. But still, even Ghosts and Goblins had a continue screen. So let's talk about what really makes this game truly strange. Well, first off, it punishes curiosity, offers absolutely no guidance, is cryptic beyond reason, and it makes bad game design look like a deliberate choice. So in my opinion, Millen's Secret Castle is less of a video game and more of an experiment to see how long a kid could go without throwing their NES controller against the wall. But hey, it's got charm, if your definition of charm is relentless suffering disguised as an adventure. SimEarth was released in 1990 by Maxis. SimEarth was the ambitious follow-up to SimCity, and by ambitious, I mean somehow clearly looked at Earth and said, what if we put all that in a spreadsheet? In SimEarth, you don't just build cities, you build civilizations. You don't manage people, you manage an entire biosphere. And you're not trying to win, you're just trying to prevent the Earth from turning into a lifeless marble. Hey, do you want to change the carbon levels in the atmosphere? You can do that. Want to be a jerk and drop the moon into the ocean to see what happens? Sure, go ahead. Want to genetically engineer intelligent dinosaurs, watch them invent computers, and then go extinct in a nuclear apocalypse? Oh yeah, that's in the game. Everything is simulated. Tectonic plates, ocean currents, climate, evolution, nuclear wars, mass extinction. It's like a TED Talk, a Actazer movie, and an environmental guilt trip all rolled into one. So let's talk about what makes this game truly weird. You can terraform Mars or Venus, and yes, the game lets you try to make them habitable. Bad idea. You can create an intelligent species of robots called cybernetic life, which sounds cool until the side. Organic life is obsolete and wiped everything out like a budget Skynet. Dinosaurs, you can evolve them into a civilization, but don't get too attached, they usually blow themselves up. It's a game where ambrosia can become astronauts, but only if you adjust the nitrogen content just right. Here's the thing. SimEarth is strange not just because of what it simulates, but because it actually tries to simulate everything. It's a game that asks, what if you could control evolution, weather, politics, and extinction all at the same time? SimEarth is technically an educational game that came with a manual full of charts, formulas, and even scientific jargon to double as a college textbook. Want to learn about Gaia hypothesis? Earth will teach you that. Want to accidentally ruin an entire species by not balancing their oxygen levels? Welcome to Club. Playing this game as a kid felt like being handed the keys to the universe and then immediately crushing it into the sun. And yet, somehow, it works. Kind of. You're not really winning, you're just observing Simmers isn't a powerful fantasy, it's an existential one. The game doesn't tell you how to succeed, just how everything dies if you don't pay attention. So, in the early 90s, video games were pretty easy to categorize. Platformers for platformers and god games. But then along came Actazer, a game that said, what if we try to combine a platformer and a god game and see what Frankenstein thing comes out? So in Actazer, you start out in a side-scroller with a weapon, armor, and so on. And then all of a sudden, you're thrown into a god game without warning. You're managing everything to making a civilization, from roads to redirecting lightning bolts like Zeus. I forget to mention, however, you are a flying baby who's playing target practice with flying demons while your followers pray to you hoping you will help them. Now, unlike most games where you play the hero, a knight, or even a plumber, in Actazer your followers call you the Master, a sweeping deity who wakes up just to slay a demon to save your followers while you try to build a better tomorrow. So let's talk your followers and their cult levels of devotion. They build temples, offer you tributes, and constantly thank you for turning stones into rubble with lightning. It is like playing black and white, but much nicer. Actazer is strange because this game looks like it should never work at all. The two different parts of the game feel like they were ripped directly from two games and then combined with duct tape by Red Green. The more you destroy a monster, the more your followers get. And the more followers you get, the higher your experience gets. Who needs a grindy game when you can have followers who worship you? The tonal shift is bizarre as it gets. 1 minute you're helping your followers create a harvest festival, and the next you're fighting demon statues with laser eyes in a volcano. The music by legendary Yuzo Hashiryo, I probably butchered the hell out of that one, is orchestrated, dramatic, and sounds like it was meant for a high-budget anime about gods going to war, and somehow it still works when you're watching a village expand its wheat production. Actazer is strange because it dared to be different. It broke the mold, invented a mold, broke it, and then sculpted a weird little angel baby to shoot arrows at bats with it. It's a game that makes you feel powerful, but also responsible. A sword swing savior with a celestial city planner, all in one cartridge. Shadowgate was first released for the Mac in 1987, but then it was ported to all different systems, and then it ended up on the NES in 1989.
Get that kitty down.
Shadowgate begins with a wizard throwing you into a haunted castle with nothing but a vague warning and a handful of torches. From there, it's just you, your brain, and a bottomless pit of ways to die. This NES classic isn't your typical fantasy quest. There's no sword swinging heroics, no dragon slaying glory. No, Shadowgate is more like a medieval escape room run by a sadistic dungeon master with a flair for poetry and iconic death trucks. So like today's first-person shooter games, Shadowgate does the same. Instead of controlling the hero, you are the hero. You navigate with a menu system at the bottom of the screen. The wonderful yet devious thing about Shadowgate are the choices you make. The wrong one, you end up dead with a wonderful rhyming epitaph like a child's nursery rhyme. So let's talk those torches. One word of advice I want to give is collect every torch you see, because like a normal torch or a demented flashlight, the torches do go out on you, and when they do, the music changes. But if you ignore it and the lights go out, well, poof, you're dead. Basically, It's the developers of Legend of Zelda decided that a candle in the game has a timer, and when it goes out, poof, you have died. The puzzles are as strange as the game needs to find some gems, try hitting a wall. Raid rocks, need to get a key from a skeleton in the lake, find an orb that freezes water, need to get past the Sphinx, answer, it's easy but strange riddle. Most of Shadowgate is nothing more than trial and error. Try one thing, you die. Try another thing, you get to the next thing. And yet all of its weirdness, Shadowgate nails the atmosphere. The music is haunting, rooms are eerie, and there is a constant feeling that something awful is actually about to happen. Because it probably is. It's like a dark gothic choose-your-own adventure book that you found at the back of the library behind some old dusty novels from the 1990s. Shadowgate was originally part of the Mac Venture Classics along with Deja Vu and Uninvited, which, I might add, were also ported to the NES, and they are just as weird as well. Shadowgate isn't just strange, it's the kind of strange you get after you've had a steady morphine drip while you were in the hospital for trying to jump over a ledge that was never there. SoulBlazer was released on January 31st in 1992 in Japan, and then on November 27th here in the States. So the plot goes a little like this. You are the SoulBlazer, who was sent by a being that claims it's not God, but you know, it is God, who calls himself the Master, who wants you to restore the Earth after someone calling himself Death Troll. So how do we do that? Not by being a destructive jerk, but by trading all living things for gold. So let's talk about some of the strangeness of the game. So instead of exploring and looting, you rebuild the world. Kill a slime, a flower grows. Defeat a boss, and well, you free an orca. And the NPCs are just as strange as it gets. You're like Dr. Dolittle. You can talk to the animals, and even talk to the trees and flowers. SoulBlazer is like if David Lynch wanted to create an RPG. The music, well, melancholic but hopeful. The atmosphere, bright and cheerful, with an undercurrent of cosmic horror. You're literally fighting to put souls back into bodies, and yet the game feels like a peaceful stroll through a metaphysical IKEA catalog. SoulBlazer is strange in the best way. It's a game about rebuilding the world one goat at a time. A surreal blend of myth, morality, and monster slaying. And while it is often overshadowed by spiritual sequels, its offbeat charm makes it unforgettable. So if you've never played it, grab a sword, say a prayer to the master, and get ready to talk to tulips. Just don't trust the mushrooms. The Lost Viking, which was released in the 90s for various systems, is a game that has you wonder what the hell they were drinking when they made this game. The Lost Viking is as confusing if you think you do what Vikings do, loot and pillage. Instead, you start off in a Norse village and somehow end up in a cyberpunk world. One moment you're fending off bears with an axe, the next you're fighting off flying eyeballs with lasers. So the plot, or what I think is the plot, is you are obviously the last of the Vikings, as the title suggests, but you have to defend your village from robots to a wizard. It is like the developers were trying to read Norse mythology while reading a Philip K. Dick novel. The in-game text feels like it was written by Loki after he was out drinking with Thor. Half the dialogue is stuff like, "The spirits tell you to go forth and press the blue square button before destiny becomes undone." Excuse me? What the hell was that? Your game is going to be strange when you have to deal with the worst boss ever, and that is the control. Jumping feels like you're throwing a bag of bricks, and attacking with your axe is like waiting in line at Six Flags to get in the newest roller coaster And just like Atari ZTs, there are pits everywhere, endless deadly pits. The art style looks like a maniac depressive painter forgot to take his meds. One level looks like a painting, the other looks like someone threw neon paint and said, "I'm done." The enemies are just as weird. You have to contend with mutilated dogs, to what I think is a Viking ghost with a jetpack. Now I can only think of two things this game could beat. It could be deep and diabolical, or it was what happens when the developers ran out of ideas and just threw something into the wall to see what would stick. I am leaning towards the second. So the Lost Viking, if it a hidden gem, a misunderstood classic, or just a fever dream someone coded into existence after watching heavy metal and eating inspired lutefisk. Yonoid released in 1990 for the NES, but the funny thing is, Yonoid is like Super Mario 2 in the States. It's not even original. It's a reskinned version of a Japanese game called Kamen no Ninja Hana Masamaro, where instead of a ninja fighting in feudal Japan, you are the Domino's mascot battling for all things pizza toppings. Basically, Capcom said, let's take this ninja game, slap on a Domino's mascot, and pretend it makes sense. They changed the graphics, redrew the sprites, and added pizza-eating mini-games. That's not liberalization, that's culinary war crimes. Now let's talk about the boss battles. Instead of battles with weapons and fighting to the death, you battle each other over a pizza-themed card game, and to win you have to order more pizzas than the boss. It's like a game of shop, but instead of seeing who can drink more, you have to see who can order more pizzas. Your main weapon is a yo-yo. Yes, a toy that I had when I was a kid, because nothing instills fear in your enemies like a kid's toy from the 80s. The levels are out there as the game. 1 minute you are in New York, the next minute you're surfing a river of lava on a pedal boat that looked like a pizza. And once you beat the game, you get to see the Yonoid dance like he's saying you survived another strange game. Now before I do this, there's a little history about the Yonoid. You ever wonder what happened to the Yonoid? Well, to make this short, at a Domino's pizza place, a guy with a gun barges in your juice up to the place, all because he felt offended by the Yonoid since his last name was Yonoid. In the end, Yonoid is a weird mashup of corporate branding, ninja leftovers, and totally unhinged game design. It's one part pizza commercial, one part fever dream, and somehow still kind of fun. When you think of iconic 90s platformers, you might picture a speedy blue hedgehog or a mustache plumber in overalls, but then there's Earthworm Gym, a game where your main weapon is, well, yourself. A worm inside a super suit whipping your own body around like a lasso. Released in 1994, Earthworm Gym starts out with you being a tiny little earthworm who became a superhero after you find the supersuit from outer space. Yes, you heard me right. An earthworm turned superhero. That sentence makes no sense, and so does Earthworm Gym. The game revels on the absurd. So speaking of absurdity, let's talk the villain's name. First you have Queef Slug for a butt. An evil alien with, you guessed it, in the shape of a butt. Psy Cow, a bounty hunting scuba diving cow. And finally, Professor Monkey per head. You guessed it, is a professor with a monkey attached to its head. The levels are just as strange as the bosses. You can launch a cow into space like a rocket. Then you find yourself racing through some intestines. And then you end up bungee jumping using, of all things, snot. And then the strangest level I have ever seen is an escort level where you have to escort a dog. But watch out, if he gets hurt, instead of him dying and you start over, He just decides to beat the living crap out of you. The creator, Doug Tenapel, was influenced by the edgy grizzled humor straight from one of my favorite 90s after-school cartoons, Animaniacs. And you could tell just by playing the game. Lastly, let's talk about sound design and animation. The animation is awesome here. The sound effects are just as good. And the music is all over the place, from surf rock to circus music, and it makes the game fun to play. Earthworm Gym is strange. It's bizarre, smelly, chaotic, Rosa carnival ride of a game. But that's why people love it. In a sea of platformers trying to be serious, cool, or edgy, Jim was out there doing bungee jumps with boogers and making us all laugh while yelling groovy. It may not make much sense, but it didn't have to, because sometimes being strange is exactly what makes a game unforgettable. And there you have it, even more strange games that somehow made it into existence. Whether it's a game about raising sea creatures that talk like grumpy old men, or a haunted RPG where you save a life because comes your worst enemy, there's clearly no limit on how weird these games can get. If you enjoyed this bizarre journey through gaming's strange corners, give that like button a gentle poke, subscribe for more retro oddities and hidden gems, and drop a comment telling me the weirdest game you've ever played. I might just feature it in the next one. Thanks for watching, stay weird, and remember, no matter how strange life gets, there's probably a game out there that is stranger. I'm Professor Retro saying peace out and stay frosty.